Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dr. Saiful, this is our second recording for our final project virtual presentation as per requested. The title remains the same, which is how Record Center classified their records. And the team members are...
My name is Syafiq Akmal bin Jumadi. My matric number 2017-102489.
My name is, of course, Hirzi Khalid Al-Walid. Student ID 2017875952.
Hi, my name is Mohamad Husnierizal. Student number 2019326057.
My name is Muhammad Faridzul Sukarni. My YATIN ID is 2017766937.
My name is Zainal Affiq based on Abbidin. Student ID 2017712853.
Yep, we are going to proceed next to the presentation without further ado. As per requested, we have revamped the entire slide to meet the requirements set forth by yourself, Dr. Saiful. So as we can see here, this is the slide which detail out the table of contents. We have 5 basically topics to be presented and discussed in this particular presentation slides. We have introduction, advantages, common issues, recommendations, and also the final, last but not least, which is the conclusion part. So of course, the introduction is again as per what we had presented before. The scope of this presentation is basically revolving on the functional classification. We are basically studying and also exploring on the type of classification that each record centers are basically implementing in as part of their daily operations. So as we can see on the screen right now, the background of these studies of this final project is essentially for us to understand the unique classification type that each record centers would typically establish and basically enforce or implement in their as part of their daily operations, and also where they basically use it to organize, among others, their materials. So the scope remains the same, which is we are going to basically talk on the functional classification from the perspective of a public sector organization. And the target country or basically the model country that we are using for the purpose of this study is Finland. And the objective is of the study is again for us to basically to gain understanding and proper comprehension on how essential records management tool is for the purpose of managing records. And at the same time, we wanted to know the actual feasibility of using functional classification as one of the primary tools, basically in the in for record center to manage their daily operations. Yeah. So the second slide is talking about the advantages of a record center that implements this methodology. So so it will basically gives on a high level 3 main benefits or three main advantages. Number one, purpose. It basically summarily it adds contextual information to the records. So in a way, it will be very helpful to daily operations of record center, because of course, as we all know, employees of record centers deal with hundreds or easily voluminous amount of records that are being sent to their centers, are being processed, and they are also hundreds or easily could be thousands, depending on the size of record centers, for them to ship over to the respective archive institution. So basically, people work with a lot of records there. So by having a proper classification method will basically aid the employees on what are the things that they are actually working on. They basically know that, hey, this box is containing this particular record, and it also has the action dates and other things that are basically critical whenever a record is being sent over to one center from an originating client location to a record center before it goes to the respective archive institution, depending on the criteria to be met. Second thing is on the context. So as far as context is concerned, basically it gives the advantages and also the ability for employees to basically understand the meaning, the contextual meaning of an individual record, and at the same time be able to gain comprehension on the dynamic relationship between other records. So it basically tells, if I were to be a staff, I would know that, hey, record A may or may not have certain relationship or maybe certain linkages with record B and vice versa. So it gives people the idea that these two may be related to one another. The third one is basically the flexibility. So as it is being stated, as what has been stated here, it basically tells and will allow people the knowledge or the understanding that the classified records will not only be useful for their respective functions, but it will also enable enable them to appraise the business functions per se. So what it tells here is basically classified records will not only be useful for only one purpose. Rather, it may also be able to assist those who are from different areas or from different domains where they can actually come and make reference to the records, even though the records itself may not really have direct relation to them. And so it's one of the other benefits that we can see here. Yeah. So the next slide is basically talking about common issues. So as in everything that we have in the world, there are pros and there are cons. Not everything will be good, not everything will be bad. It's just the way how we manage them. So what we have here is these are basically the common issues or challenges that one may experience or encounter whenever they basically implement this particular methodology. So the first one is competency. So competency basically talks about the capability of employees that are being hired to work. They are basically working for a record center. So they would require continuous training and proper upskilling to ensure that they would be able to properly classify records, especially those that are related to appropriate class among suitable seeming classes. So so basically this part is telling us that if I were to work in a record center and I want to be I am being instructed by my superior to enforce this method as part of my daily operations, I must equip myself with the proper training so that I can effectively and efficiently use this methodology, so that it will give me it will allow me to deliver my value to the company, to the record center. The next one is the common issues. The next common issues is basically confusion in the sense of employees which are accustomed to other methodologies, to other types of classification, may find it either very challenging, or maybe to a certain degree they would be facing difficulties in fully adapting to this methodology, because of course different types of classification will require different standard operating procedures or different steps to be adhered. So for example, if I am so used to classification A, it will definitely take time for me to get used or to get accustomed with this type of classification, because I have to either relearn everything from the start or have to change here and there in terms of the steps in order for me to fully appreciate this particular data classification. So the third common issues is basically the lack of alignment. Lack of alignment. It talks about the different understanding, the different means of operationalizing this methodology. Like for example, if I work for a firm which provides record keeping services to clients, so my way of doing things is as per my own, because it fits to my governance process. I have my own SOP on how to do things. And my client who wanted to engage my service may have their own style, have their own ways of doing things. So if they were to send me their records, or if they were to engage me and they were to send their records to me, there may be some conflicting information or conflicting ways of how their records are being classified and before it reaches me. So they are basically doing A, I'm doing B. So there may be some alignment that is required before I can really translate what their A means to my B. So that's a third issue, which is a common thing that happens. The last one is basically the inherent challenges of functional classification itself, because the way how these functional classification systems are structured, they are inherently and by nature uh, challenging to be updated in terms of the scheme. So this is the among the things that um, a record center must really fully appreciate, and they must tackle these obstacles in order for them to effectively use this functional classification. Moving next, these are basically recommendations from what we had observed from our analysis, from our understanding on the references, sources that we studied in order to arrive and to come to this final project. So the recommendation, number one, the recommendation is basically on the governance part. Governance in the sense of there must be a top-down directive to instruct people who are working at record center on the proper classification systems to be used. So if we were to use functional classification, someone from the top, the CE or the COO or the CFO, must actually give proper direction to everyone below that, hey, our company is going to use classification A. Get it done. Make sure that we are using classification A without any issues. Implement the managerial control, implement the technical control, implement the operational control. Make it happen. Otherwise, if this instruction does not come from the top, they may be either delay or they may be lack of execution in the first place. So things will not be moving as what we wanted. Recommendation number 2, or the B, recommendation B is basically to ensure the resiliency aspect of the record systems. As we all know, information systems are designed to support business processes, and that includes to support records related processes as well. So the applications that are designed to support these record processes must always be available. This will also be aligned with the information security goals, but that is, of course, a separate topic by itself. But what we are trying to say here is systems that are designed to support record must be available at all times. They must be there when we want to use them. Otherwise, it would defeat the purpose of having the proper classification. The third one is basically we suggest and we recommend to simplify. To simplify in the sense of ensure that functional classification are being made as simple as possible. This is to ensure that there is no confusion that can be further added up to the already already challenges to the challenges that are already being faced by employees. So we need to ensure that whatever terms, whatever instructions that we have in terms of functional classification are being granularized and be transformed to its simplicity, to the most simplest form, so that people can easily understand them. And also avoid regular need for changes. So if we implement A today, we have to ensure that we, at the very least, use A until some time, and for a considerable and reasonable time before we decide to change it to another one. So in conclusion, we are of the opinion that functional classification, as with all other things that humans develop, functional classification has its own flaws as well. It is not a perfect classification system. It brings its own implementation challenges and difficulties, especially when employees or users who are going to utilize that methodology are not proficient, or they don't really know much about that particular method in order for them to retrieve records. So problems will happen and of course, the differing opinions between experts basically do not make this thing easy as well. It do not make things easy, any easier for employees, because one expert say that this system is easy, while the other one next to him say no, I don't agree. So it is basically it would depends on the culture of the organization that implements this. So if the corporate governance believes that this methodology is the suitable one for their company, then they would basically invent or make it fit to their organization. But of course, if they don't believe it so, then it may not really be much it won't really add much value to their company. Yeah. So the final conclusion that we can state here is basically based from our research, based from our studies, we conclude that functional classification are basically the most widely used method or system applied in various organizations. These are basically the references from where we arrive to our understanding and conclusion in the previous slide. So as we can see here, there are a number of literatures that had been referred to. All, of course, came from valid and renowned sources. And in meeting the requirements, we have also added another slide stating basically the banner, your name, Sir Dr. SAIFUL, FARIK, YATIN, the group members, and our respective student IDs. Yep. And we have reached the end of our presentation. Yes, on behalf of the team, I would like to thank you, sir, for all of the information, all the knowledge, all the lessons that we have learned from you. So thank you very much. Hope the presentation is to your satisfaction this time. And Assalamualaikum.